How do you validate someone's emotions when you disapprove of their behavior? Hi everybody, this is Greg from Hard Tools, where we make it simple to build great relationships. And we get in a relationship tightrope sometimes when someone is exhibiting an emotion and the behavior that's attached with that is something that we don't approve of. And that can be challenging, and it creates a tightrope. And sometimes we fall off one side of the tightrope, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Sometimes we fall off the other side of the tightrope, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But in this video, one way that we fall off that tightrope when someone is exhibiting an emotion and it's attached to a behavior that we disapprove of is we try to control the behavior by shutting down the emotion. And so what we're thinking to ourselves in those moments is, if I stop little Johnny from being angry, he'll stop kicking his feet and slamming things. If I stop my friend from being so sad, she'll stop disappearing and engage with me, right? I need to shut down the emotion so that the behavior will change. But just as we talked about in a previous video that we can validate someone's emotion even in the moments when we disagree with the thoughts that are attached to those emotions, it's also true that we can validate someone's emotion even when we disagree with the behavior and disapprove of the behavior that's attached to those emotions. And here's the big difference to get in mind when dealing with this situation, and it's this. We feel our emotions, but we choose our behaviors. Those are entirely different things, right? We don't choose our emotions. Our emotions are natural reactions to what is going on in our world with the people and things we love. So if someone dies, I don't choose to be sad. Sadness is a natural reaction to the fact that someone died, right? The behavior I demonstrate while I'm feeling that sadness is my choice. So let's say your 5-year-old comes in and he's really angry because his sister broke his favorite toy. He's feeling angry, but he may be choosing the behavior to hit his sister, right? And so he's feeling angry, he's choosing the behavior of hitting. And so sometimes we think, I need to shut down his anger, because if I can control his emotion, then I can control his behavior. But when we see the emotion as the problem here, we're misdiagnosing what's going on, because quite often, even when people's behavior, they're not making good choices or their behavior is out of control, they have every right to feel what they're feeling. And so if we attack the feeling, we're actually creating a disconnection, and we're less likely to help them see that their behavior is inappropriate. Part of the reason we do this, part of the reason we try to shut down someone's emotions in order to control their behavior is because we have this mistaken idea that emotions lead to behaviors, right? I was so angry that I broke the window. This is especially true if in our past, certain emotions are tied to certain behaviors. That if in our past, when someone got angry, they got very violent, or when someone got really lonely, it led to abandoning behaviors, right? And we felt abandoned by them. The reality is, though, it is possible to feel something very intensely and choose healthy behaviors. It's possible to be really angry and to be aware of how angry you are and choose healthy behaviors. It's also possible to feel something not as intensely and choose poor behaviors, because emotions don't lead to behaviors, because we feel our emotions and we choose our behaviors. So, because that's true, it is very possible to validate someone's emotions, say, hey, it sure makes sense that you feel angry, or that you feel sad, or that you feel lonely, or that you feel ashamed. and still set a boundary on the behavior that they've chosen. So it's possible to say to your 5-year-old son, hey, it sure makes sense that you're angry that your sister broke your toy. Man, if someone broke my toy, I'd be really angry too. But I also want to let you know it is never okay to hit your sister, right? So you can validate the emotion and set a boundary on the behavior. You can tell your spouse, hey, it sure makes sense that you're feeling really lonely and you're in a lot of pain and sad right now, but it is not acceptable to drive home intoxicated. That's a boundary that I need to set. So it's possible to validate someone's emotions, empathize, take them seriously, stay connected to their heart, and yet at the same time, set boundaries around behavior that you believe is destructive to you or to the relationship. Now, I'm often asked, which do you do first? Do you set the boundary or do you empathize and validate? So let me give you a general principle and then let me give you 2 exceptions to that. But the general principle is always try to connect before you correct. And so the first thing you would do is empathize and validate and say, boy, Johnny, it sure makes sense that you're so sad your toy got broke, right? You validate first and you stay connected with them. Then they are much more likely to have the capacity then to talk about the boundary you're setting. So empathize, validate comes first, stay connected, and then the correction. In most cases, that's the best way to do it. 2 exceptions to that. One obviously is if Johnny is still hitting his sister, right? Or if Johnny's throwing a tantrum and he's about to knock down the TV and break it over. In that case, you stop the behavior. If something is at risk like that, you stop the behavior first, but then you connect before you correct, right? Then you connect and empathize with what the emotions are that are going on, then correct the behavior. The final exception is a big exception, and I mention this because we just get this wrong so often. And that is if someone's behavior is like abusive or bullying, or if they're sexually harassing you, something like that, like it's traumatizing behavior, it is not your job to connect with them so that you can correct them, right? In those cases, you want to go a completely different direction, and what you want to do is disconnect as quickly and safely as possible in that situation, and then get someone else to correct it, right? Call the police, or talk to a school principal, or talk to human resources. In those situations where someone is exhibiting traumatizing behaviors, it's not your job to connect and correct. It's your job to protect yourself by disconnecting and get someone else to correct that behavior. So let me encourage you to practice this with this video, and that is continue listening with empathy, continue validating other people's emotions, particularly when they've invalidated themselves or expressed emotion that's very intense, or an emotion that may feel taboo or not allowed. But while you're doing that, practice asking yourself this question. While they are feeling that emotion, what behaviors are they choosing? And so you may discover that, he's very angry, but he's choosing to be vulnerable, right? Or she is very afraid, and so she's choosing not to tell the truth. Separate out what someone is feeling from what someone is choosing, the behavior they're choosing in your own mind. Begin practicing paying attention to that, and that will set you up for what we're going to talk about in the next video. Simple steps, practice, practice, practice. That's what Heart Tools is all about.